I will be with our senior insider, Adrian Wojnarowski, for the latest on the Boston Celtics. Danny Ainge stepping down as president of basketball operations. Brad Stevens has been promoted to replace him. And here's Danny today on the decision to retire. Take a listen.
I think that when I had a heart attack 2 years ago, like I started thinking about what I was doing with my life and, you know, what are the things that I want to accomplish. And then these last 2 years have been tough, like, you know, in the bubble and all the rules and scrutiny and protocols that we've had to go through, you know, has not made it as much fun. I don't know if there was a moment in time, but it was I trust my instincts. My instincts told me a couple months ago that it was time for me to move on. I don't know what my future holds. I don't have any plans. Right now, my goal is to get Brad up to speed on the draft and try to make this transition and put the Celtics in as good a place as we can be.
So interesting. Woj, welcome to The Jump, first of all. But what can you tell us about how all of this came about?
Well, Danny Ainge, Rachel, certainly laid out some of it there. And I think he was feeling the grind of this job, the fact that this team was really no longer as currently constituted, you know, one of the championship favorites. That certainly factors into it. 18 years is a long time running an NBA. He's been in the league for 44 years total. Listen, there was some conversation in recent months about maybe doing one more year, a possible succession plan that maybe would have included somebody outside the organization. But I think when Brad Stevens had interest in moving up, leaving coaching and taking on Ainge's role and just being president of basketball operations, and that was something ownership was behind. They obviously know Brad Stevens very well. They spent 8 years with him. They saw him make the transition. College coaching to the NBA, to NBA coaching, which is a dramatic adjustment. And this is going to be another dramatic adjustment. You've seen Lawrence Frank in LA coaching to the front office with like a year in the front office in between, or a year as an assistant general manager to running a team. And so I think for this Celtic organization, they did value having some continuity. And I think especially once Brad Stevens was ready to walk away from coaching.
Yeah, it's interesting. You hear news like this, you start thinking about the last conversation you had with the person. I saw Danny on the court just this past Friday. We had a long chat. He was super comfortable, relaxed, which is not necessarily what I would have expected for a guy who was already down in a playoff series, but he seemed very at peace, and now I have a feeling about why. And he also was very certain to tell me that he had confidence in the future of the organization. He's like, we've got 2 All-Stars who are under the age of 25, and he said that Brad Stevens should be with this organization as long as he wants, as far as I'm concerned. I didn't know when he told me that he meant in this new role, but I guess he already knew back then. Now, Brad Stevens obviously in position now to pick his successor for Celtics head coach. Any insight on where he is leaning with that?
Well, I think it's too soon, Rachel, to really know exactly a small pool of candidates for this. I think Brad Stevens has to really think and take time to think about how he wants his team to play, the personnel changes they might make, who's a fit, who he can work with, and really get out and understand the landscape and who's available to him. Because the coaches who might be available right now, who may not be available right now, could be by the end of the playoffs. We have seen plenty of times where coaches who lose in the postseason either are fired or decide to walk away. You know, we are still in the first round of the playoffs. So it's possible that pool of candidates could become even bigger. But I certainly think, you know, for Brad Stevens, he's going to be going through a learning curve as general manager or as president of basketball operations. How much of a learning curve do you want to have a coach who hasn't been in the NBA before or who hasn't been a head coach in the NBA? I would have a hard time imagining him going back to college for the Celtics next coach. But this is a coveted job. They have very good talent here. It is still the Boston Celtics. And I think this is going to be a job where there's going to be a lot of interest in it. And I think Brad Stevens and the Celtics have time now to really go out, get to know some people, spend time with people. They don't have to make a quick decision here.
Well, they have the opportunity to do more than just the same old candidates. And I know there's a lot of Celtics fans and people around the NBA who hope that they really do that kind of search. Now, lastly, Woj, because apparently all institution-changing news must break in the same couple hours, we also found out today Coach K will step down at Duke after next season. Why was this the right time for him?
Well, he's going to turn 75 next year. Certainly, you've seen a changing of the guard in college basketball. Roy Williams just retired. And, I think certainly for Mike Krzyzewski, you got to decide how much longer you want to do this. And I'm told that Jon Scheyer, his associate head coach, will be the coach in waiting. They did very quietly here in the last few weeks a coaching search with their new athletic director, Mike Krzyzewski. And they talked to coaches like Tommy Amaker, and I think some coaches who had some Duke ties. But Jon Scheyer was there as a player, certainly. He's been there, helped recruit, led the recruiting on Jason Tatum, Zion Williamson, and now he has a year to recruit for his program as Mike Krzyzewski finishes up and kind of has a farewell tour in this last season.
Well, I'm very happy they didn't try to go after Chris Collins because we're keeping him at Northwestern. Thanks so much for joining us, Woj. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.